Hi everybody, it's Anne with Art on the Creek. Look what I have for us today, a little mini palette. This is the Core Artist Watercolors Intensity set of 6 half pans, and I thought we could take a look at it today. So let's get to it. Well, let's take a look at the back of the box here and see which colors we're going to get. We've got a Hansa Yellow Light, a transparent Pyrrole Orange, I really like that color, quinacridone Magenta, dioxazine Purple, cerulean Blue, which is great for skies, and finally a phthalo Turquoise. So the thing about Core paints is that they have a bit of a unique proprietary formula. The name for the agent that they put in their paints is called Aquazol, and I'll get that more than that in a minute. I want to talk about the palette first here. See all those little bubbles on there? That is classic Core, and what they are for is for mixing wells. So instead of having one big flat space, you've got a bunch of little individual spaces. I get kind of messy. You'll see that when I'm painting. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. There are 3 additional mixing wells here, and they are silicone. I don't know if you can see that that's flexible. The one on the top there has the logo in it, so also comes with 6 additional half pans. You have a swatch sheet in here, as well as this flyer. Let's take a look at this. It'll give you a little bit of information about the brand, plus their color line. Their color line's not horribly extensive. It doesn't compare with, say, a Daniel Smith, but it's very comparable with the range quantity-wise of an M. Graham, say. You've got all the colors in here that you need to choose from, and they've even got some specialty colors too. So I don't know, I really like Core paints. They're very unique in their formulation. And really what makes them stand out is that Aquazol, and that's where we can get all of these really bright, intense colors. Every time I've used Core paints to paint with, I've noticed that I've got a little bit more luminosity than usual. We've got 6 paints on one side and 6 empty half pans on another, and the swatch chart is in a different grid layout. That's my first little pet peeve, but it is just that. It's just a pet peeve. You could redo it and make your own swatch card, but I'm going to go ahead and just randomly choose this first one and put it in A. This is the Hansa Yellow Light, and I'm putting it in box A here, just on the left-hand side, and now I'm going to come back in with water, and hopefully you'll be able to see how quickly these paints move across the paper when you add water to them. That's kind of a real characteristic Core trait. One of the other things that's very characteristic about it is the intense color. Look at this Pyrrole Orange. I mean, that's amazing to me, that it really rivals a quinacridone in its intensity. And right here you can see when the water comes up against it, it just really spreads and flows quite nicely. Now let's test the magenta. And this one is a nice bright color. You really do have a CMY palette in here because you've got the cerulean, the yellow, the Hansa Yellow, and this magenta. So you could mix a full range of colors. We're going to paint something that might be a little bit counterintuitive today, and I'll have a full-length tutorial of what we're going to paint later on the membership platform. So in case you are interested in learning how to paint what we're going to paint, I'll get into that more later in the video here. But right now, this dioxazine Purple, look how intensely that went down. I didn't pre-wet these paints at all, you guys. This is just going in with a damp brush. The brushes I'm using today, by the way, are by Kanchan Call. I have used them for the last several videos and really enjoyed them. They have such a very fine detail point, and I'm really loving how much paint they hold, the amount of feedback they have. They're just a beautiful, beautiful brush. The cerulean is nice. It's a little bit of a semi-opaque, it looks like, and I think it would be great for skies. They have quite a bit of blues in their range, and this one looks really nice. And of course, anything that's going to include a turquoise, I'm in. Phthalos tend to stain, but they're also very rich and deep in color. So we'll have to see when we play with these a little bit how they are for lifting, how they are for mixing on the page. We'll just have to get in here and play a little bit. So let's take a look. Look at that. Look at that. Look at how that water is just moving around on that orange. I'm very excited about all of this. But this layout of the palette really kind of, I'm getting a little bit frustrated. And then when I was all done painting, I realized something. Do you see how there's 6 across here? And then the grid on the palette is only 12. Well, I kind of think it would have made more sense to do 6 and 6 and kind of divide it in half. But look what I found after we were done painting. Look at this, you guys. They're marked. There are indentations in the silicone there. Can you see how it says A, B, and C under those first 3 palettes? I couldn't read that until I was cleaning up and putting it away. So I would say that's not the greatest demarcation, but hey, that's okay. It's a serviceable palette and I'm enjoying it. So I'm just going to look beyond that and move on. Let's get some paper out and let's make some mixes. The paper that I'm going to be using today is one that I found on Amazon. It's by Lightwish. It's a little binder that has these 6 holes punched into it, and it contains 100% cotton watercolor paper. It's just a little folio style binder. Little pocket here. You can put brushes in here or maybe some money and little tickets or whatever other ephemera you want to collect in there. So let's just move on over here and I'll set this up and we'll kind of get some paints out and see what mixes we can come up with. I've got this portion on double speed here. The paper that I'm using is 100% cotton and it's also got a fair amount of texture on it. It's a cold press texture. But I just kind of want to play with these and see what happens when we just go wet into damp and kind of butt them up next to one another. Not much is happening, but look at this rainbow. Oh my goodness, it is so bright and so vibrant. That's really the standout for this set, is definitely its intensity. So I'm just going to get the brush wet here and kind of try and mix these together and see what happens. And again, not a lot. That could be the paper, because I've got another little mix that we can do here that's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm seeing a little bit of mixing, but let's try something else here. Let's just mix in the palette first. I'll mix the magenta with the yellow, and there's a nice orange for you. And then we'll mix the magenta with the orange, and we can come up with a nice russety red. So just at first glance, I'm really liking what I'm seeing. Let's switch over to that phthalo turquoise because it really looks lovely now that it's drying on the paper. Look at that intense color. You barely need any paint to make these work. Here's where we have some classic core samples or examples of what core paints can do. When you drop them wet into wet, they really do spread. They have so much fun. They really play well together on the paper. So let's put some purple into the cerulean over here, and let's see, I'm going to lift some of that out. We've got a little bit more cerulean over here, and we'll put some magenta in there. And you can really see how these colors are just moving along, playing along. We'll put some water along here and just really show you. There we go. We'll just spray it in. We'll show you how the core paints really move and play on the paper, but yet they kind of hold their integrity. So they're really cool to play with. They're a whole lot of fun. You could do some great effects with these paints, in addition to mixing a traditional color wheel. I've got this next section slowed back down to real time because I just want you guys to see how well these watercolors work on any texture paper. So the other side of this paper, the one that I've done all the tests on before, is that cold press texture. And it's a little bit rough. It's not too, I would say it's like a fine grain cold press, really. That's what it is. And then now this side is almost like a hot press paper. It's a lot more smooth. But of course, it's still that 100% cotton paper, so I want to just really play with it. I'm trying to get an awful lot of water on here without changing my brush. I don't know why I didn't think to change my brush. So let's just spray some water on here and I'll spread that around. This is going to be a mix in water, so you can see how these act wet on wet. So we're going to do kind of a CMY palette here. We'll start with the yellow. Here's the Hansa yellow. Can you see that spreading? I know that yellow is a little bit hard to tell, but when you're working with core watercolors, you can always expect them to really flow and just kind of take over, which is a lot of fun, but it can be harder to control. So if you are an artist that really wants to work in tight spaces and control the flow of your watercolor, maybe core wouldn't be the one for you. But if you really want to just watch the paints flow and have fun, this is your brand. These are really kind of awesome to play with. So I'm mixing the three colors here, and we're just going to kind of coax them around and see what we can come up with to get them to blend together. So here goes. We're going to make a green here with the Hansa yellow light and the cerulean. The one thing that I noticed about this cerulean that was so incredible was it had such a great granulating property to it, and even on this smoother side of the paper you'll be able to see it. Look at the green that resulted. It's almost like an emerald green, a real gem tone. I think all of these in this particular palette really do make me think of gems, and that would be a really cool thing to paint with these if you like painting crystals or gems or anything, I think, fantastical, any kind of wizards or dragons or anything like that. Look at these bright, vibrant colors. And of course, you can adjust the temperatures of all of these colors by either adding more of one or more of the other. So your mixes will turn out however you want them based on the percentage of your mix. I'm going to try and kind of swirl them all together here in the middle to see what kind of a dark we can get. And that is one thing that I will tell you is it's not that dark. If I were to really sit and play with this, I probably could have made it a bit darker, but as far as mixing just a go-to kind of a black shade, that one I couldn't do right here on this color wheel. So we'll see what we can do a little bit better in our in the painting that we're going to play with. I'm just trying to mix this around a little bit, and then I got too much orange over on the yellow side. So let's put some of that Hansa yellow back in there. And let's just let this dry, and let's see what it looks like when it's all done. Isn't that fun? You can already see the granulation coming out on the cerulean there on the bottom. But let's get it dry, and I will show you what it looks like. Here it is. Here are the color mixes once they're dry. Now that little smudge on the bottom right, I did go in with a paper towel and try and blot up some of that extra water so that I could dry it a little faster. So that's not indicative of anything of the quality of the paints. That's just me interrupting the process. These colors really just shout rainbow to me. And I think that's so fun and so wonderful and so vibrant. And I can picture botanicals. I can picture, like I said, fantasy creatures, all kinds of things. But one thing that I think might be a bit of a challenge to paint is something that's more close to the color that it occurs in real life. Like, for instance, my dog. Let's try and paint Leo with these bright, vibrant colors, and let's see what we can come up with. Leo is a Havanese, and he's 3 years old. Many of you know him. He is quite my shadow. I love him to pieces, and he's my little studio buddy. So let's see if we can paint Leo today. This paper is such a convenient size. I had a coaster sitting here on my desk, and I just used that to trace for the circle. You know, a lot of the photos that we take tend to be okay or sort of good. And even though this one's close up, and he is darling, I have to say, sometimes they would look better if you could crop them in a shape. And that's kind of what I thought of this one with the curve of the arm of the sofa and the curve of his head. It would really be nice to put this into a little circle, and I thought we could try that with this. Now what I'm experimenting with is how well these will shade and create shadow and depth in the contours of his face. Whenever we're dealing with portraiture, whether it's animal portraiture or human portraiture, we need to be able to show that that being is alive. There's a skeleton in there. There's shadows on the face. This is true really with anything that you're painting, but I think for something that's living, it really, those shadows and nuances really tend to either make or break the look. So you'll have to tell me in the comments if you think I got it right or not. I'm pretty pleased with the way it turned out, but you know, I'm his mama. I'm a little bit biased. In this quick little painting here, I didn't want to do a lot of detail on his fur, and since he is a light colored dog, he's a fawn color, I don't really have those shades at my fingertips. So what I'm really experimenting with this set here is, can I create the correct values so that when people look at this photo, or rather picture that I'm painting, they will say, oh yeah, that's Leo. So that's what I want to do, is I want to push this set to its limits to see if I can really use it for anything that I would paint, not just for those bright, vibrant, fantastical mermaids and dragons and wizards and things like that, botanicals. I really want to see if I can get in here and use this for something that I am likely to paint, which in my case, that's a portrait of my dog. And so far, so good. So what I'm trying to do with this brush is take advantage of its really fine hair tip at the end. It's got a beautiful, beautiful point. And what I want to do with that is to be able to not only get into the small spaces, which I can very easily, but I also want to be able to show the shadowy parts of Leo's hair without having to paint every single hair in. And in order to accomplish that, I'm leaving a lot of white space, as you can see. And then I went over a lot of those areas and just reshaded and put in a lot more shadow in different kinds of layers. I used the cerulean, I used the phthalo. And now to finish it up, I am going in with an 18-0 brush and add those high highlights and whiskers here and there. So the thing that I really like about this paper, as well as these brushes and these paints, this is really a good set here to use, all three of these things together, is that I'm able to layer wet over wet, wet into damp, wet over dry. I'm able to add all of these subtle nuances, brush textures, everything I need and everything I want in order to finish my portrait of Leo. And here he is, you guys. I hope you really enjoyed this quick review today. And remember, if you'd like a full-length tutorial on how to paint Leo, then join me as a channel member, and I will see you with that video when it publishes on a Members Monday. Okay, everyone, have a really wonderful, wonderful week. Stay creative, and if you're looking for a new little fun set of travel paints that has room in the palette to add 6 more of your favorites, maybe consider the Core Mini Intensity set. Just as a reminder, I purchased everything in this video with my own money. I'm not being sponsored. This is just my pure opinion of how much I love Leo and how much I really like this Core Mini Palette of Intensity watercolors. You guys take care, have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.